there's a lot of Legend of Zelda games, so I thought to myself, it would be totally creative if I went to Tier Maker and ranked all the Legend of Zelda games, because nobody's ever done that before. I mean, but ranking videos are fun. I do enjoy doing them, and the Legend of Zelda franchise is a great franchise to do. I'll have a link in the description box down below should you want to do your own list. These are just my personal opinions on ranking the Legend of Zelda games. What's the best Zelda game? What's the worst Zelda game? We'll find out in this video. If it upsets you, I'm sorry. It's not that big of a deal, though. I hope you get over it. And I hope you subscribe if you are new, because I want to hit 500,000 subscribers. And who knows, since these videos are evergreen, maybe I've already hit it. So we could see here we have the different categories. Excellent, 2 exclamation marks. Great, good, okay, bad, never played. Brett will be editing this video. Hopefully he's done lots of fancy things that keeps you entertained for the first 52 seconds of this video so that you haven't clicked off on it. But let's just jump straight into it. We're going to start out with the original Legend of Zelda game. I'm going to go with great. I feel like this is the game that sort of set the stage for the Legend of Zelda franchise. You know, you got introduced to all the characters, you got introduced to all the different enemy types, well, not all of them, but you sort of got a feeling for what this franchise was going to be. It was something very different from what we had seen, especially in North America, as far as, you know, an adventure game is concerned. There were games on older platforms and stuff like that. Your Ataris, your Intellivision had some styles of adventure games, but it was nothing quite like The Legend of Zelda in terms of size and in terms of scope. Why I don't think it's excellent is because at the end of the day, some of the stuff was just way too cryptic, and like, yeah, you could figure it out, but I don't know. I think it's a great game. It's a game that still holds up very well, but it is an older game too. So if you were kind of going by the time frame of when it was released, sure, you could put it in an excellent category. But since we've had so many excellent Zelda games since then, it's a little bit harder for me to put it in that top tier category. Still a fantastic game though. Next up, we have The Adventure of Link. I think this game is okay, and it was a stark departure from what we got with The Legend of Zelda, the original game, but this was at a time where like sequels were kind of, you know, they weren't really a thing when you think about it. You know, look at all of the sequels that we got during this sort of time point and how different they were from their predecessor. You know, this was the only game that was completely different. You had Castlevania 2, which you had the standard Castlevania formula, and then they went into more sort of side-scrolling, open-ended thing, which is actually what The Legend of Zelda, The Adventure of Link kind of was. That's the kind of game that this was. Of course, there was hookers in the game too. I mean, that was kind of cool, the first NES game with prostitutes, but, you know, I don't think it's a bad game. I do like some of the mechanics in it. I do like some of the things that were in it, but some of the things definitely did not work out for the best. You know, once again, you had so much cryptic stuff, and I get it. The cryptic stuff was kind of a focal point of NES stuff because of the limitations with technology, but it was far worse in this game than the original Legend of Zelda game, so I definitely feel like that holds it back. But I think that would be a great game to sort of remaster or reimagine because there is some good potential in there. Next up, we have The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the Game Boy. This is the DX version, Game Boy Color. Is it bad? Have I never played it? No, it's great. I absolutely love this game. I think this game is phenomenal. I remember playing it as a kid. This was really the first Zelda game I played as a kid. You know, I had played The Legend of Zelda and The Adventure of Link, but I never really sat down and beat those games. When I ended up getting a Game Boy and a Game Boy Color subsequently, this is the game that I got with my Game Boy Color. I did not play this on the original Game Boy, so I played the DX version. So that's where all of my nostalgia comes from. And, you know, it was a return to form for the Zelda franchise. It was much more in line with what we saw in the first game, and I think that made it a much better game in my opinion, because it sort of started to get the formula. You know, you started to figure out how the Zelda games were actually going to work going forward. You would get an ability. That ability will let you go somewhere else on the map, so on and so forth. And you kept getting different abilities. And as you got more abilities, you had more of the map accessible to you. So I think that was a super important thing with this game. And I think this game definitely, you know, withstands the test of time. I don't know if the Switch version is on here. I don't see it on this list, but I prefer this version to the Switch version of the game. I think the Switch version is fine. I would put it in good, but I would definitely put this game in great, because I just love everything about it. You know, the setting, the characters, the progression system of the game. Just a fantastic game from top to bottom. Great soundtrack too. And then we have the CDI games. I'm not going to talk much about them because, I mean, they're crap. Like, let's be realistic. They probably shouldn't even be on this list, but they suck. Like, there's nothing to them. They're stupid. They're just bad. I've sampled them. I feel like a lot of people have sampled them. It's not something you want to play for an extended period of time. But then, of course, we get into one of the bigger games of the franchise with A Link to the Past, and I'll go ahead and put that in excellent. I would put this in a lesser portion of excellence, and I know it's going to piss some people off, but a lot of people, this is their favorite. Really, when it comes down to it, I feel like people have three favorites when it comes to The Legend of Zelda. You either love A Link to the Past, you either love Ocarina of Time, or you either love Breath of the Wild. Those are the three main games that people classify as their favorite. And out of those three, I would say A Link to the Past is probably the lesser of the three. That doesn't mean it's a bad game or anything like that. It's a fantastic game. But this was a game that I did not experience as a youth. I actually did not play this game until I was an adult. So maybe that nostalgia factor doesn't quite wear on me. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's really the blueprint for modern Zelda games, even though the graphical style was that retro style. It took everything that was good from the Legend of Zelda and the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening and just expanded upon it so much. That game had so much depth to it, so many secrets. The world itself of Hyrule had grown so much. Of course, you had the light and the dark system as well, with the two different worlds within the game. It was a fantastic game, man, and it was unlike anything that I think we had really seen at that point in time as far as action adventure games were concerned. And, you know, people still, this is one of their favorite games of all time, and I completely understand it. I completely understand if this is your favorite Zelda game by far, because it does make sense. But when you sort of take away that nostalgic factor, I think, you know, for me personally, I would just put it below those other two games that we mentioned. So obviously those games are going to be on the excellent list. And let's just go ahead and put one of them on there with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This is probably my favorite Zelda game. I would have to say that this is the best Zelda game because it took everything that we loved about A Link to the Past, which was great. You know, it was a fantastic game. And then it was like, okay, let's kind of make it again, but in 3D. And like that jump, that technological jump within the game was just, it was mind-blowing. Like, I don't think people really understand the magnitude of the 2D to 3D graphic shift that ended up happening, that so many of us lived through, because it was astounding. It was astounding to see these worlds that usually we had just looked down upon from a top-down perspective into a 3D style. The dungeons in this game are absolutely brilliant. Yes, I don't hate the water temple. I know so many people hate the water temple in this game. I don't hate the water temple. I think it's fine. The music, the storytelling within the game, the gameplay itself, you know, the targeting system, the lock-on targeting system and stuff. This game just did so much, not just for the Legend of Zelda franchise, but for video games in general, because I really felt like this was the blueprint for action-adventure style games in the 3D world. And I feel like this game is still emulated till this day. So Ocarina of Time is my favorite Zelda game, and I absolutely love it, and I will die on that hill. I don't know when Oracle of Ages and Seasons came out. I'll put it in good, though. I know a lot of people actually really love those two games, and they're very interesting because although they came out at the same time, they are a bit different. It's been years since I've played these games, but Oracle of Ages was kind of more puzzle-based, and Oracle of Seasons was kind of more action-based, and they kind of played into each other because when you would complete one game, you, of course, would get a password that you would use in the other game. So, you know, from a technological standpoint, it was actually very interesting. It was almost like, you know, that and Pokemon Red and Blue were like the first games where it was like you need to buy both of these to experience every single thing that this has to offer. I would love to see these games remastered or maybe brought into like as one game or something like that. Obviously that would be a lot of work, but this was an interesting sort of experiment because this game obviously was not developed by Nintendo. It was developed by a subsidiary of Capcom at that time. And of course, this is not the only time that Capcom did do some Zelda games. We'll talk about another one in a little bit, but I like these games. I'm not quite in love with these games like a lot of people are from a, graphics and gameplay perspective. It's very similar to Link's Awakening. There is some improvements upon it, but at its core, it definitely feels Link's Awakening-esque. But I do love the whole seasons mechanic in the game because, having 4 seasons, it actually adds something to the game. It actually plays into how you do things, in spring versus wintertime. So definitely enjoyable games. I just don't put them on quite as high a pedestal as a lot of people do. All right, so this one will be kind of controversial, but I'm going to put Majora's Mask in bad, excellent. No, I'm going to say it's good right alongside of Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. I'm not a simp for Majora's Mask. I don't think it's a bad game. I don't think it's a great Zelda game, though. And it really boils down to, I think the story is really cool because I like the sort of dark and brooding story, but it definitely feels a bit rushed, compared to other games. Look at the development cycle for this game. And it was just, I don't know. I didn't like the whole 3-day mechanic. I didn't like the strong emphasis on things like masks. It always felt like you were rushing in this game. It always felt like you were having to just sort of, go as fast as you can without actually exploring the world. And I feel like exploration in Legend of Zelda games is just so important. It's, it's a staple for this franchise. It's really one of the first franchises to encourage exploration and to sort of go against all of that. With Majora's Mask, it was a game that never hit with me as a kid, and it still really doesn't hit with me as an adult. I could see it as a good game, but I would be lying to myself if I put it in a great or an excellent category, because I honestly don't feel that it is up there with some of the better Zelda games. It's fine for what it is, but for what it is, it was kind of a disappointment for me personally, and I know there's people that love that game. Start the hate comments. I don't care. What am I going to do? Read a comment and then cry about it? No. People are going to disagree with me. It's fine. Minish Cap. I'll go ahead and put that in great. I think the Minish Cap is probably one of the more interesting and different and more dynamic Legend of Zelda games. Of course, this came out for the Game Boy Advance, and once again, like I had alluded to earlier, this game was also developed by Capcom, and it's really weird to think about, Capcom developing like mainline Zelda games. Like, this wasn't, sort of an offshoot thing. This wasn't something like Hyrule Warriors or something, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This was called The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. Of course, everything was kind of shrunk down for this. That was the whole mechanic. It was a tiny Link, and I think they did a really good job with this game. It definitely sort of harkened back to A Link to the Past, but it also brought in many new things and many new mechanics. The graphical style of the game was actually very interesting because I felt like it was a departure from what we had seen before. It kind of had more of an animated style to it, which plays into an upcoming game that we're going to talk to, and I feel like they're actually very, very similar in that sort of aspect. It's just the different perspectives that with you play these games at. I think Minish Cap is super underrated when it comes to mainline Zelda games, and it's definitely something that I feel like a lot of people haven't played, but now that it's on Nintendo Switch Online service, like, get that expansion pack and play some Minish Cap, because it's definitely worth playing. Like, it's a super good game. All right, we're gonna put some stuff here. I never played the Four Swords stuff, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put that down here. We'll get it out of the way. The Master Quest, whatever. I'm not gonna classify that as its own thing. We need to clean up this list a little bit. Stuff like, the Ocarina of Time 3D stuff. Once again, we're gonna clean up this list a little bit. I will go ahead and put Ocarina of Time 3D where it belongs. I'll put Majora's Mask 3D where it belongs. We also have HD versions of stuff, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But let's take a look at The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. This one is going to be a great game. And it's funny because initially I didn't love this game. When that graphical style hit, I think so many people were like, what the hell is this? Because it looks cartoony. It looks sort of kiddie-ish. And I feel like, coming off of games like Ocarina and Majora's Mask, we wanted to see a more realistic art style. When we got that sort of teaser trailer for the GameCube and what it was capable of, The Legend of Zelda that they showcased during that looked nothing like Wind Waker, and a lot of people thought, oh, well, they're sort of dumbing down the game. But when we actually got Wind Waker, it was a fantastic experience. Why I don't put it in excellent is because of the fact that I was not a huge fan of a lot of the boat stuff. I know people really liked it. It was kind of a fun traversal system for people, and you could do sort of stuff, and it played into the whole motif of the game. But just for me personally, it never really clicked with me all that much. I kind of like the more traditional stuff in most of my Zelda games, and I felt like this game, there was just some things that sort of deviated from the path just a bit too much for me personally. Once again, if this is a game that's one of your favorites, I can completely understand why. It's absolutely gorgeous from a visual standpoint. There is some stuff that was annoying that was remedied in the HD version of the game that was available on the Wii U. We're gonna go ahead and put that in great as well, but still, I wouldn't put it in the excellent category. It's just a little bit below that for me because of the boat stuff and the water stuff and stuff like that. But it's a great game. Great game. I absolutely love it. And it's something that you tend to appreciate more and more as you get older and as you realize, you know, art style is a very important thing, and not everything needs a realistic art style. And I feel like this game did a great job of conveying that not everything needs a realistic art style and could still be a fantastic game. Now, the next game we're going to talk about, oh boy, I feel like this is going to get me in trouble because people are going to say, you're an idiot. There's no way. But we're taking Twilight Princess, and it's going in excellent. Both versions of it. Twilight Princess is probably, oh shit, it's probably my second favorite. I would go Ocarina, Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild. And that's going to blow people's minds. But here's the thing. Twilight Princess to me was that Ocarina of Time game that I always wanted on a modern platform with modern visuals. This game absolutely blew me away. And it blew me because it was so damn good. Yes, the wolf stuff at the start of the game was very annoying where you had to collect the little drops or whatever. They fixed it in the HD version of the game. Beyond that, this game is brilliant. The whole Midna thing, the whole size and scope of the world that you're in, the different areas that you visit, the centralized town system, oh my God. I adore this game. I absolutely adore this game. I think it's absolutely brilliant from start to finish. I think from a visual standpoint, it was absolutely fantastic because it was the graphical style that I wanted Wind Waker to be. And while I appreciate Wind Waker and everything that it brings to the table, I just feel like Twilight Princess is like Ocarina of Time 2. And I know that's going to confuse a lot of people, but really when you compare the games, like there's a lot of similarities to those games. There's a lot of similarities to the dungeons. There's a lot of similarities to the extra things that you do, such as the whole fishing mechanic. And then you have the whole wolf thing, which some people didn't like. I can understand it, but I definitely enjoyed it. So yes, probably the most controversial opinion that you're going to see. We're putting Twilight Princess in the excellent category, a top of the top for me. Probably my second favorite Zelda game. I know people are gonna get pissed about that. Link's crossbow training, it was okay. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about Link's crossbow. It was to sell the stupid Wii gun thing, but I will be honest, I love that Wii gun thing. I used it a ton on Ghost Squad and on House of the Dead, both the House of the Dead 2 and 3, and of course, House was the other game that they made. I can't think of the subtitle of the other house, the Overkill. I think it was Overkill. And then you had the Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicle stuff. So crossbow training, it was like $20, fine with me. Let's take a look at some DS stuff here, because these games were kind of interesting, and then we'll get into one that's Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass. I will say good for Phantom Hourglass. I would say okay for Spirit Tracks. Phantom Hourglass is the one that I played when it was new. I didn't play Spirit Tracks until after the fact, and they're very similar in how they work, because the whole control mechanic is Nintendo wanted to force that touch screen down your throat. It was like, hey, the DS, did you know that the DS has a touch screen? Well, you're gonna freaking know it because it's here and you gotta touch it, and touching is good. That was actually a Nintendo DS marketing motto that they had. But when it comes to these games, I think Phantom Hourglass is the better of the two. I don't necessarily think they're bad games, but they're held back by limitations. You know, not only just technical limitations, which I feel like people could look past, but the fact that you constantly have to control everything with your freaking little stylus and stuff like that. Like, it just made for a different Zelda experience that I feel like it should have been a more traditional one. All because you have a touchpad, you know, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to force it into every game, because we're actually going to talk about a game in a little bit that it was developed for a system with a touchpad, and guess what? It was barely used, or when it was used in a fine manner. So For me, these games are fine for what they are. They're not must-play games. If you wanted to pick one or the other, I would personally pick Phantom Hourglass. I think it's the better of the two games. Kind of, you know, especially if you're a Wind Waker fan, it's kind of a mandatory play if you enjoyed Wind Waker. But just for me personally, Phantom Hourglass is a little bit better than Spirit Tracks. Skyward Sword. This is tough. I will put Skyward Sword. Okay, so this is the Wii version of the game. I guess this list was made before it. I'll put it in good, but if it's the Switch version, I'll put it in great. Because I did not enjoy the controls in this game. Much like games like Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, instead of having the touchscreen, you had the wiggle controls, the Wii controller, and with Wii Motion Plus. I didn't like it. I didn't finish this game on the Wii. You know what? I'm going to put this game on okay. I'm going to put it on okay. If we're talking about the Wii version of this game, it goes on okay. If we're talking about the Switch version of the game, it goes on great because they fixed the controls. They made it so that I could actually play through this game. And once I was able to play through and beat this game, I found a Zelda game that I thoroughly enjoyed. I had so much fun with this game, but I did not have fun with the game on the Wii. Like, I played it for like, I want to say it was like 8 or 9 hours, and I was just like, this is dumb. Like, I don't like this. I don't like having to, you know, it's not engrossing enough to me. And I feel like that was kind of a problem with the Wii is, once again, Nintendo tried to force so much stuff into their mainline games, and it's like, bro, you don't have to do that. You don't have to force it. Make it go naturally. Have some sections where maybe you have like one-on-one sword fighting and stuff like that. You know, games like Red Steel kind of did stuff like that on the launch, but it didn't force you to constantly do that. Underneath those motion controls is a great game in my opinion, which is why I'll say the Switch version is a great game. But for the vanilla version of Skyward Sword, once again, if you get mad at me, I'm sorry, but it is just okay. Triforce Heroes sucks. Triforce Heroes was a bad idea. It wasn't a good game. It wasn't a fun game. It was a game built on multiplayer, which, like, I don't know, like, Four Swords kind of worked because you were all in the same room, and I guess if you were all in the same room with Triforce Heroes, you could have fun with it. But just for me, I did not like this game. I thought it was a dumb idea, kind of like Metroid Prime Federation Force. Almost just like tacking on, you know, why are we taking our mainline games and trying to make them weird multiplayer games when, let's be realistic, Nintendo's Online isn't necessarily the best and is obviously lacking in some sort of features, especially in their first party games. So you're already hampering the experience. So yeah, Triforce Heroes, that can go in the trash can. Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. At the time, I thought it was a great game. I'm going to say it's a good game. I don't know if I would have quite put it up with the pedigree of these other games because it was very familiar. You know, the whole Link Between Worlds where you could, you know, go on your side and stuff like that and, you know, go flat against the walls. Like, it was a cool mechanic and it was a good game, you know, a nice solid 10 to 12 hour playthrough. But I just felt like once you were done with the game, there wasn't much reason to go back and play it again. And a lot of the great games and excellent games do have reasons, or they were so unique at the time that it allows them to propel into that upper echelon. Whereas A Link Between Worlds was a really good game. It had a really good premise, you know, it had a new mechanic in it as well, but I just felt like that replayability and sort of that lasting appeal wasn't very high with this game. You know, how many people really talk about this game when talking about, you know, main Zelda games for any sort of system? Never mind that this was a handheld 3DS game. When you're talking about the best handheld Zelda games, hardly anyone seems to bring up A Link Between Worlds. I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I thought it was very good, but I just felt like the lasting appeal, you know, that impact wasn't quite there with this game. Hyrule Warriors. Hyrule Warriors is great. Hyrule Warriors makes me happy. This game makes me happy, and it's so much better than Age of Calamity. Age of Calamity is not on this list. If it was, I would put it on okay, because Age of Calamity is all based on, you know, Breath of the Wild, whereas Hyrule Warriors takes from everything. Hyrule Warriors takes from all the Zelda games, and that's what makes it so much better. The Switch version is the best version, 60 frames per second, no slowdown, a bunch of characters on screen, all these remix music tracks. I love this game to death. Koei Tecmo did such a good job with this game, And it really started the whole Warriors stuff. And now we want all these different types of Warriors games. Of course, we got Fire Emblem Warriors, which was fine. But I feel like, you know, Hyrule Warriors was great because there's so many awesome Zelda characters throughout the history and the lineage of it. So many different levels, so many different atmospheres that you could take from. And having it with just a hack and slash style gameplay, it was fresh. It was fun. It's one of the best Wii U games. And I love it on the Switch as well. No matter what version we're talking about, though, we'll go ahead and put it in great. And then, of course, Breath of the Wild. I've already said what this is. This is freaking excellent, man. It was so different. You know, when you look at all of these games, most of them are very similar at the end of the day. You could see similarities. You know, in terms of how the game works, in terms of the progression system of the game. Yes, you might have 2D graphics or 3D graphics or top-down perspective or behind the camera perspective. But when we're talking about the mainline games, they all sort of flow in the same way. And then, of course, we have Breath of the Wild, which just turned that upside down. It was like, here's a world, go explore it. People like to compare it to the first Legend of Zelda game, and I get that, but the exploration is completely different because with the first Zelda game, there's still like hard stops. Like you still have to go and beat the dungeons in a certain order in order to progress. Whereas with Breath of the Wild, you don't necessarily have to do that. You know, it brought a whole new unique perspective onto Hyrule. It brought a whole unique perspective to what Nintendo games were about and what Legend of Zelda games were about. And, you know, with Tears of the Kingdom coming up, like, I feel like the expectations for this are higher than ever. This was the most successful selling Legend of Zelda game of all time. And it's just incredible to think about, you know, how the series managed to stay so relevant while staying so similar, and then something completely different comes along and it just throws the whole world of the Legend of Zelda upside down. Obviously, this game did not have dungeons, which a lot of people did not like. There is hope that Tears of the Kingdom will have dungeons, but you know, for me, I feel like it's a proper evolution. You know, it's that step that Zelda needed, because I mean, you know, I'm not going to say the games were stale, but how many times could you do something over and over again where you have, oh, you got to go to the dungeons, you got to get this next thing, and while it's great, you have so many awesome Zelda games to choose from on this list that are in that style. And then we have Breath of the Wild, the ultimate open-ended Zelda game with a sequel coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in excellent, and that's my list. That is my list, my rankings for all of the Zelda games, at least that were available on here. I think we did a good job covering them. But let me know in the comments section down below what you think. Just to recap, we have excellent Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time plus 3D, Twilight Princess, both versions, Breath of the Wild, great. We have the original Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, Minish Cap, Wind Waker, all versions, Hyrule Warriors, good. We have the Oracle of Ages and Seasons, Majora's Mask, all versions, Phantom Hourglass, and A Link Between Worlds, okay. We have the Adventures of Link, Link's Crossbow Training, Spirit Tracks, and Skyward Sword. And then bad, we have the freaking CDI and crap-ass Triforce Heroes. Let me know what you think of my list in the comments section down below. Shout out to Brett for editing this video. This is a long video. This is one of the longest videos on this channel, but I feel like this will be good. I feel like people will enjoy this, so I hope you enjoyed watching this. Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Feel free to make your own tier maker list. Like I said, I'll have a link to this list in the description box down below. Should you want to do your own, you want to do a response video to me, that's cool, even though people will just be like, look at all these people making the same style of video, and it's like, you want response videos to come back, but you don't want people to make similar styles of content. Who cares? Quit gatekeeping content. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Hit that subscribe button. Later.